Hello guys, welcome to Simp Recap channel. Today we are going to recapping a new movie. In the present day, researchers in the Arctic Circle uncover the buried wreckage of a large, wing-shaped aircraft. While investigating the aircraft's interior, two of the researchers discover a frozen, circular object with a red, white, and blue encased in ice. In March 1942, Hydra forces led by Johan Schmidt invade a stone church in Norway, seeking a mysterious cosmic artifact known as the Tesseract, which possesses untold powers. Upon discovering the true Tesseract, Schmidt orders the church keeper and the entire village to be killed. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, a young man named Steve Rogers, who is in his 20s, weighs just 90 pounds and stands at a height of 5 feet, anxiously waits at an army recruitment station. The army doctor examines Steve's medical records, which resemble those of a 90-year-old, and denies his application, marking him as 4 Fahrenheit for military service, which is his 4th rejection. Feeling disheartened, Steve attends a military event with his friend, Bucky Barnes. At an event, Steve observes Howard Stark's unsuccessful attempt to showcase a flying car. Feeling determined, he leaves the event and heads to a different recruitment station. His friend Bucky follows and inquires about Steve's plan to improve his application. Unbeknownst to them, Dr. Abraham Erskine overhears their conversation and is impressed by Steve's determination. Bucky wishes Steve luck with his 5th application, and Steve enters the recruitment station for another physical examination. Inside, Steve sits on an examination table and grows nervous when Dr. Erskine enters the room. Dr. Erskine has all of Steve's prior applications on file. Concerned by Steve's failed applications, Erskine tests his character by asking if his insistence on applying for military service is driven purely by a desire to kill Nazis. The young man sincerely reveals that he is not a killer at heart, but does not like bullies regardless of their origin. He also shows little concern when Erskine reveals that he is German by birth. Impressed by Steve's determination, Dr. Erskine recruits him for Project Rebirth, an experiment to create super soldiers run by the Strategic Scientific Reserve, with Erskine, Chester Phillips, and Peggy Carter in charge. During basic training, Phillips initially doubts Roger's suitability for the procedure, but changes his mind when he witnesses Steve's courageous act of selflessness. On the eve of the treatment, Erskine reveals to Rogers that Schmidt underwent an imperfect version of the procedure and suffered negative side effects due to his inner ambition for power and obsession with becoming a superior man. However, he reassures Rogers that he chose him because he believed Rogers was an inherently good man and one that, because he had been weak his whole life, would not lose respect for the strength he would gain. In a secret military installation high in the Alps, Johann Schmidt brings the glowing cube to Dr. Zola, his hydro weapons specialist. The cube's incredible power allows Schmidt and Dr. Zola to create unstoppable energy weapons and cannons, planning to use this energy for Zola's inventions. Schmidt, who has located Dr. Erskine, sends an assassin to eliminate him. Peggy and Steve visit an antique shop, use passcodes with the cashier, and access a hidden military bunker. Peggy takes Steve to the center of the bunker, where they discover Dr. Erskine working on a medical capsule with Howard Stark. Colonel Phillips is socializing with politicians and important figures. Steve is instructed to undress and sit in a capsule. Stark explains that the process involves injecting muscle regenerators into Steve's major muscle groups, followed by exposure to Vita rays. Despite the expected pain, Erskine assures Steve he will become stronger. Carter wishes Steve luck and joins Phillips in the observation room above. Steve's muscles receive the serum, and he's enclosed in the Vita ray. The capsule glows brightly. Steve yells in pain, but also tells them to continue, and the procedure is quickly completed. When the capsule is shut down, Steve comes out a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier with solid muscle, which is just the most superficial aspects of his body artificially raised to the maximum human potential. Everybody, including Phillips, celebrates the success of the procedure and descends from the viewing chamber to congratulate Erskine. After witnessing the success of the experiment, one of the attendees reveals himself to be Schmidt's assassin. Heinz Kruger, the assassin, lingers in the facility, leaving a small satchel on a chair. Shortly after, an explosion rocks the viewing gallery. Kruger descends the stairs and fatally shoots Dr. Erskine, taking the last vial of the super soldier serum. He escapes into the streets of New York. Steve Rogers chases after Kruger, utilizing his newfound strength and endurance to catch up to Kruger's car on foot. Despite Kruger's attempt to flee in a submarine, Rogers manages to apprehend him. But the vial of super soldier serum is broken in the process, and the assassin immediately commits suicide by cyanide pill before he can be interrogated for information. With Erskine dead and the super soldier formula lost, the SSR is ordered to join the war and engage Hydra directly. However, Phillips decides to leave Rogers behind and allow scientists to study him in an attempt to rediscover Erskine's formula. Senator Brand approaches Rogers and instead offers him the chance to tour the nation for the USO to promote war donations, using his image as the strong. As an ideal symbol for the public to rally behind, Rogers agrees to this role. He becomes Captain America and takes part in scripted stage performances for the USO. As he travels across the country, Captain America becomes hugely popular, resulting in more extravagant shows and appearances in various media like film strips, comic books, and merchandise. While he's glad to contribute to the war effort, Rogers continues to play this character for the public. He grows increasingly weary of being paraded around while not being able to have a more direct role alongside those actively fighting. Meanwhile, Schmidt unveils his new Tesseract-powered weaponry to 3 Nazi officers sent to oversee his operation. They ridicule Schmidt, saying that the Nazi Party no longer takes him and Hydra seriously due to his obsession with magic and the occult, and playfully refer to him as the Red Skull. The Führer feels, how does he put it, the Red Skull has been indulged long enough. A name that infuriates Schmidt. Schmidt takes the 3 to his weapons lab where they are shown his unstoppable energy weapons and a strategic map of Europe dotted with targets. One of the 3 notices a target hovering over Berlin and confronts Schmidt. Schmidt quickly vaporizes the 3 Nazi officers. Schmidt announces that Hydra has disbanded from the Nazi Party and is now enemies with the world. Schmidt uses this moment to declare his secession from the Third Reich, claiming that Hydra could grow no further in Adolf Hitler's shadow and will now follow his agenda. Hydra kept drawing power from the Tesseract, using it to make weapons and enhance their technology. This made them a significant threat to the war and the world. In November 1943, while entertaining servicemen and meeting his SSR colleagues, Rogers discovers that Barnes' unit was defeated by Hydra. Despite Phillips believing it's a lost cause, Rogers can't accept that Barnes is gone and is determined to rescue him on his own. He gets support from Carter and Howard Stark. Stark flies them over the battlefield in his private plane. Steve suspects a romantic relationship between Stark and Carter but keeps his feelings to himself. When Hydra's anti-aircraft guns target Stark's plane, Steve parachutes in while the others escape. He sneaks into the Hydra base, eliminating many guards along the way. Rogers manages to sneak into Hydra's main factory where he finds and frees most of the captive soldiers who begin a riot and start escaping while Rogers continues on to find Barnes. Steve makes his way through the facility and happens across Bucky, who is tied down to an operating table and has quite obviously been tortured. Steve also notices an oversized tactical map mounted on the wall with various marked installations. Steve frees Bucky, who is surprised to see that Steve is taller than him, and commits the map to memory. Schmidt. When the prisoners break free and Rogers infiltrates the facility, Hydra triggers a self-destruct sequence to hide their activities and relocate. As the building starts to explode, Schmidt confronts Rogers on a high catwalk. He taunts Rogers about their shared use of the super soldier serum, believing they've transcended normal humans. Then, Schmidt unveils his true face, removing a mask to reveal a Red Skull-like visage, earning him the name the Red Skull. The Red Skull escapes the exploding facility in a strangely designed private plane, while Zola sneaks away in Schmidt's roadster. Steve and Bucky have a huge divide to cross to their freedom. Bucky crosses a trembling, buckling support beam and manages to cross to safety moments before the beam plummets into the fire below. Left with no other option, Steve backs up as far as he can and leaps over the burning. Rogers leads Barnes to the roof where they both barely manage to escape the factory themselves before regrouping with the escaped soldiers and marching back to base. Following the liberation of the Allied prisoners, Rogers gains his superior officers' respect and acknowledgement as a soldier and is given high rank and the chance to fight as Captain America as a key figure on the war front opposing Hydra directly. The news of Captain America's success on the battlefield has swept over the world, but Rogers does not appear for his medal from Congress. The reason for that absence is in London. Steve shares his memory of the Hydra base with Phillips and Carter and plans to destroy these bases one by one. He aims to assemble a team of men he saved in Italy to help. Steve meets the Howling Commandos in a bar, and they enthusiastically agree to join. During their meeting, Peggy arrives in a striking dress, ignoring the men, including Bucky, and flirts with Steve, expressing her desire to dance with him. Howard Stark equips Rogers with advanced gear, including a durable, custom combat uniform and a circular shield which is made of a metal called vibranium, which is lighter than steel and is vibration-resistant and will absorb heavy impacts. For the next 2 years, Rogers and his Howling Commandos lead a strong offensive, sabotaging various Hydra operations, much to Schmidt's frustration. In 1945, the team later assaults a train carrying Zola. Rogers and Barnes engage in a fight with the soldiers on the train. During a mission, Barnes falls from a train into a freezing river and is presumed dead, while the soldier captures Zola. Rogers is profoundly affected by the loss of his best friend. Carter encourages him to channel his grief into ending Hydra once and for all. With information from Zola, they find the last Hydra stronghold. Rogers leads an assault to prevent Schmidt from using devastating weapons on the United States. He and his team devise a plan to confront the Red Skull at his headquarters. In his new uniform, Steve rides a Harley into the base, deftly avoiding Hydra soldiers and tanks. He eventually gets inside the base, where he's surrounded by Hydra forces and taken prisoner. They escort him to the Red Skull's private weapons lab, where Red Skull questions what set Steve apart. Moments before members of his team zip line into Red Skull's office, a climatic firefight ensues as hundreds of soldiers under the direction of Phillips and Carter storm the base, killing many Hydra soldiers. Red Skull flees to his private hangar, in which a gigantic flying wing, Hydra's massive aircraft bomber powered by the Tesseract, is preparing for takeoff. Rogers climbs aboard the Valkyrie as it takes off. He sneaks into the craft where he finds dozens of plane missiles, each labeled with a different major American city. Inside the cockpit, Captain America and Red Skull engage in a physical fight. Red Skull shoots his energy pistol at Steve, but Steve deflects the shots with his shield. One of the deflected shots hits a console holding the Tesseract, causing it to open a space wormhole that engulfs Red Skull in bright light. The Tesseract drops to the floor, burning through the plane and plunging into the ocean. Unable to safely land the plane due to its dangerous payload, Rogers instead crashes it on the Arctic shelf while making a sorrowful goodbye to Carter, making a promise to take her dancing, knowing he would never be able to make the date. Stark later recovers the Tesseract from the ocean floor but is unable to locate Rogers' body or Schmidt's aircraft. Rogers awakens in a 1940s-style hospital room. Deducing from an anachronistic radio broadcast that he was out of place, he flees outside into what is revealed to be present-day Times Square, where Nick Fury tells him he has been asleep for nearly 70 years. Shocked by what just happened, Rogers can only mention that he had a date. A year later, Fury approaches him with a mission of global significance. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe my channel.